I'm here today in the Saxon Gardens at the heart of Warsaw. Since 1727, a public garden, one of the first in Europe. But it started life as something more, the garden of a palace built by the first Saxon King of Poland, Augustus II. A member of the Lithuanian dynasty from Saxony became kings of Poland. Why were they here? What were they doing? Why did they build this palace? And what is more, what is the Saxon axis? An exercise in urban planning. Join me in Poland Daily History today when we find out more. That's why this church is significant, because it's one of the few buildings in Warsaw which is from that period of the Augustus II's time. A building, and it's remained pretty much unchanged since those days, which of course, given the other history of Warsaw, is itself quite a remarkable feature.
Yeah, exactly. When we even look at this church, it's a kind of mixing of late Baroque and the Rococo influences, especially at the Gloria and at the highest point of the church, with all those Rococo sculptures. One of the best preserved Baroque Rococo churches that we have in Warsaw. It wasn't connected directly with August II or August I, so the Vatins had the same period. And actually, that's a place to reach, because we are standing on the royal road. Yeah?
We are indeed.
Yeah. So the backbone, historical backbone of the city, which was connecting the royal residence and the royal castle, the royal residences on the south of the city, and Villanov and so on, and of course further to the south with Krakow, so the previous capital, to like the medieval capital and the new capital were connected with the royal road. Yeah. So that was the historical backbone, and actually Augustus II, with his architects, wanted to tie up his axis, the Saxon axis, to the historical backbone of the city. So exactly at this spot, he actually tied up with his architects the main axis of the
created the axis, which is
Saxon
like perpendicular to the royal route, essentially.
Yeah.
You know? And so he's sort of, here we are at the intersection.
Here we are on the intersection.
The historic royal route of Warsaw, and here I am, the first Saxon king of Poland. I'm going to create my axis as well, which I think, as we can imagine in purely architectural terms, of course, you can take it back from over the river in Praga, in the east of what would be the axis where he was elected king, to Wola in the west, where historically kings of Poland, the election had been held as well. So again, it's just tying in the sort of thing, of course, which I think at that time, particularly monarchs, particularly those of an absolutist tendency, like to say, we are tied into the history. We are part of the history. We are showing the world that we are here legitimately. Harder when you're an elected king, of course, but we're here, and we are, God willing, as they would have said, here to stay. Of course, history has shown that they weren't here to stay for very long, but there we are.
Exactly. So that I think it's the very important thing to point out. That it was beginning in the one election field and ending in another election field. So that was this absolute idea of signifying also the position of the king in the kingdom. Exactly. So that was very important for August II, because he was ruling as an absolute monarch back in the Saxon electorate. Yeah, exactly. And when he became the king of Poland and Lithuania, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, he needed to change into the parliamentary system, yeah, and the so-called like the democracy of nobles that we used to have in the Polish-Lithuanian kingdom. So he wanted to transfer a lot of those absolute ideas into the Polish territories, yeah, and he wanted to transfer the political life, the taking of the procedure of the taking all the decisions. So to limit also the rights of the parliaments and the nobles. But he wanted to show his position also through the urban planning and through the architectural style. Yeah. So he was changing actually the whole layout of this part of the city, and actually he bought, even for this new axis, about 28 of the different parcels which once belonged to the different nobles' families here around the city. Yeah, so he also transferred literally the grounds of Warsaw from the nobles' ownership into the royal ownership. Yeah, so that was a huge change of the thinking about the city.
And to create this marvelous Saxon palace and this super garden, as I say, here I am, here are the Saxons, we're here right in the centre of Warsaw, and this is, we are absolutely in the centre because we're absolute monarchs. Yeah. And of course then beginning his battle with the Polish, which was a more democratic, albeit you had to be a nobleman to take part in the democratic system, but was as we know, quite an advanced democratic system.
Yeah, and that was one of the biggest problems, and which causes the biggest conflicts between August II and Wettins in general, and the Polish and Lithuanian nobles, because of course something which was the most important for the Polish and Lithuanian nobles, that was their position and so-called golden freedom that they had to take all the decisions that they wanted within the parliamentary system, both like locally and on the whole state level. And August III, of course, wanted to introduce different ideas. So it built the tension, and it built the tension which was the case actually through the whole reign, especially of August II, but also August
because August II tried to make the monarchy hereditary, and although his son Augustus III did in fact become king, obviously he wasn't successful in establishing a family dynasty. Yeah. Beyond the reign of Augustus III.
Yeah, so again, it was complex history. So after the death of August II,
which in 1733.
Exactly. Because of the diabetes problems and different problems with health. By the way, he was a very strong, big guy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I'm right in saying.
Yeah, and he died, and so there was another problem with the succession after the August III. So there were another election.
This is the War of Polish Succession.
Exactly. So again, we have Stanisław Leszczyński, who came up for the second time as a candidate for the crown. Yeah, and we had the succession war between the August I, who was again supported by the Russian forces, and and of course the Stanisław Leszczyński, which was supported by French and some part of the Polish nobles. Yeah, so again it shows again that there was this tension between the Wettins and the Polish nobles through the whole
time. But of course with Russian support, the Augustus III was sort of secure on his throne from about 1766, 1767, that sort of. That was generally recognised by everybody as being the legitimate king of Poland for the duration.
Yeah, and that was actually one of the causes of the decline of Poland in 18th century, you can say, because in the Polish historiography, quite often both Augusts, the second and the third, Wettins, are recognized as bad kings. It wasn't that simple, yeah? Some of their ideas were really enlightened ideas, actually, and with changing the system, that was also required by the Polish system, which was collapsing, yeah? Yes. But they didn't match at all with the internal political situation and social situation in the country. Yeah, so that was the main problem, actually.
And of course, the problem, I think, with being dependent on other people is you are dependent on other people. And I think Augustus III also wanted his son to take over the throne of Poland. But by that time, the Russians had decided they'd be rather better, or they favoured Stanisław Augustus Poniatowski as king.
Yeah.
So the Augustus III wasn't able to leave a Wettin
because
to the Polish, on the Polish throne.
yeah, it already was. It already changed the situation actually, and August I changed the politics also, and he became really Polish king, we can say it, with time, and he was building this even a stronger Poland already, and he started some new ideas actually, and in the late his reign.
Yeah, and I think there is actually, I think the grandson of Augustus III was briefly, following the Napoleonic Wars, or in that part of dislocation of Europe, became the Duke of Warsaw for a relatively short time.
Yeah.
But that was really, I think, not desperately significant from...
No, he was more a symbolic monarch.
That was more
yeah.
a prologue to sort of Russian domination of the sort of joint kingdom of when the kingdom after Napoleon, when they had the so-called Kingdom of Warsaw, which is really just a front for essentially Russian domination. So he's just really more a footnote. So that was three veterans, but of whom I think the first two, Augustus II and Augustus III, are the ones we're most interested in. And particularly, I think, Augustus II, because of the influence he's had on the physical environment and the buildings that he made in Warsaw. Yeah. So I think from that's a very good, I think, introduction. I think we can probably now, since we can probably go and start and sort of retrace the steps on the Saxon axis.
Let's go along.
Let's
then.
go and do it. Yeah, thank you.